It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Welcome, everybody, back to the show this week, and hopefully the first of many conversations where we've got the good fortune to be talking with Mike Ritzema over at Superior Trucking Payroll Service. Perfect. All right. Well, welcome, Mike. Great to have you for a discussion today. Why don't we take a minute and just introduce yourself to the audience, what your background is, and what it is your company does.
I appreciate that. Yeah, my name's Mike Ritzema. I'm the president and founder of Superior Trucking Payroll Service. We've been at this full time for 15 years, and our company is a square peg for a square hole. Payroll services just for trucking companies. We really don't do other companies other than people that we know that ask me as a personal favor. So everything we've done is built specifically for trucking. For me, it comes from a background of I was the CFO of a trucking company. They had a trucking company in a brokerage, and they weren't happy with the quality of product they were getting from their payroll service. And so I told the owner I could write them something better that would do exactly what they wanted. And we did it, and it worked. And so then we just decided to see who else could benefit from some best practices. It's been great.
Yeah, so a long time in the business leading up to starting your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was working for the trucking company for over 10 years.
Awesome. And you're up in Michigan?
I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where it's actually sunny today. We're very excited.
Nice. Well, we're hoping this is, we've got many topics that you and I've touched on in the past, but the one we wanted to focus on today was discussing 1099s. And I found a post last night that kind of played nicely and dovetails into this discussion. So I'm going to read this gentleman's post on Facebook. So I'm having a hard time deciding if I should stay with my 1099 company, making $1,800 a week, or go with a big fleet and be an employee for 47 cents per mile with benefits. What would you do? And we see 1099s popping up, go on Craigslist, go on Facebook. You've got companies offering 1099s, drivers looking for 1099 arrangements. Let's talk about 1099s. What is it?
A 1099 versus a W-2. A 1099 is what you use to pay a vendor. It's what you use to pay, your attorney who provides a service to your company, but doesn't do what your company does. And so they would get a 1099. Versus a W-2 is a document that you give to an employee, that's someone that works for you. Versus a vendor is somebody who does work for you, like does actual work things for you. There's a big difference though in between those. It's not just a thing you can elect. Oh, today I'm going to be at the 1099, or oh, I'm going to be a W-2. There's rules about all this stuff. And there's probably a reason that the company wants to pay you 1099 that is not in your favor.
Right.
Which really goes back to your original question for your guy, 47 cents a mile or $1,800 a week at 2,500 miles. That's 1,175 versus 1,800. So it's easy for anybody in the audience to go, well, 1,800 is more, is it not? Aren't you a payroll math guy? Yes, 1,800 is more, but you don't know what you're not getting. What he's talking about with benefits too, health insurance and things like that, which yes, you can buy your own, you can go to the marketplace or go find some other place to get it. But you also have worker protections, things like workers' comp. For trucking companies, they might be listening to this, they're like, oh, workers' comp is the bane of my existence. It's expensive, right? It is. It's going to be 8, 9, 10% of your wage. So it's a significant dollar amount. But that's there because if the employee gets injured while they're working, it covers their lost wages and their medical bills, and those are going to be sizable. There aren't a lot of minor truck work comp cases. Usually the truck's moving at the time. I mean, there's the occasional small one, sure, but a lot of them are catastrophic.
Right.
They're the guys in the accident on the road going at a decent speed that they're full. It's like 80,000 pounds going down the road. It's a lot of impact that gets crushed into that cab. And so that, if you're a vendor, if you agree to be 1099, which I'm still say you can't do, but let's say you did anyway, and you get in that accident and you don't have insurance, you're wrecked. you are just out of luck because you're going to be bankrupt even if you had money saved up because the hospital is going to soak you out of everything.
Right.
And the 5-figure ambulance ride. So, I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah, and when you look, I mean, you walk around an employer. I'm sure you got them up on your wall somewhere too. All the benefits of being an employee, right? All the rules, the regulations,
Mhm.
all that stuff specifically falls under the W-2 arrangement. The 1099 is not. That's, like you said, a plumber comes into your business and he works on the toilet. He's not an employee. He's just a guy who came in and did a job for a set amount of money, and he walks back out, and that's the extent of the relationship. This is the significant difference. And to your point, it's you, the government lets you choose the arrangement, but that does not alter the fact that if if you are behaving like an employer can get themselves into hot water. We've seen that a number of times in big companies where, FedEx, McLean, some of these companies who have gotten tagged for trying to classify people as contractors who were in fact employees.
Well, yeah, and there's a little bit of wiggle room in some particular cases, but for the most part, it's really not. It's a choice like you're choosing to shoplift or not. Like, yes, you can make a choice to shoplift, doesn't make it legal. And so, but you kind of touched on one of the really big differences between a contractor and an employee that I think people overlook. You were talking about the plumber. So a plumber comes into my office because I paid him to put in a new sink, puts in the new sink, there's water damage and a whole bunch of stuff gets wrecked. I can go back to the plumber and say, you owe me to fix all this stuff. An employee doesn't have to bear that loss. Like literally, I could order my employee to not pour maple syrup onto their computer, and they can pour maple syrup onto their computer. All I can do is fire them. I can't make them pay me back for that because the employer bears the risk there, which is why they want to pay you 1099. Because if you accidentally clip a mailbox with your truck or hit the dock funny or whatever, all the things that happen, even
Yeah.
the ones that aren't your fault, but you can't prove aren't your fault. If you're a vendor, they can offset that, which means they can deduct it from your check, and you have no recourse really, unless your contract says you can't. Again,
Sure.
I'm not an attorney, just the standard issue disclaimer, but that's a big deal. With an employee, you can't do that because employees have rights.
Well, especially in trucking, right? Because things happen, right? You back into a mirror. Somebody backs into you, right? And your employer says, "Well, I'm holding I gave you a truck that had a mirror on the side of it, and you brought it back without one. I'm holding you accountable for it." I mean, you see all kinds of posts about those situations too, where, whether it's your fault or whether it's not your fault, my employer is trying to take $2,000 out of my check to cover the deductible on an accident that I was in. If you're an employee, that's not legal.
Exactly. Now, there are ways that you can kind of claw that back from an employee, but it takes doing, one of which is they agree to pay it back as a condition because you can fire them, but you can say as a condition of employment, you got to pay me back, but you still have to pay them minimum wage. There's all these things to protect an employee, which is a W-2 person. None of those exist for a 1099. So you're really out at your own peril on that. And it goes to a larger discussion, and you can stop me if you're going to go there anyway or whatever. But the company that wants to pay you 1099, what's their motivation?
Right.
Like I think that's a big deal because they're doing it for a reason. They don't want to pay payroll taxes, which by the way, that's part of it too, is the example again, $1,800 a week versus the $1,200 a week we were talking about. Well, on the $1,800 a week, you pay both sides of the Social Security. So that's 7.65% that you're paying versus as an employee, the employer pays it. I have to pay it for all my employees, and that's just the
Right.
way it works. So on 1,800, back of the napkin math, we're talking about $500-600 a week
Yep.
that they're paying for you. So that difference is already, I mean, not $500-600, that's way too high. 50-60 bucks maybe. Okay, I'm gonna get my calculator out here. 1,800 times 0.765, $137.
Yep.
So that gap of 500 that we were talking about between the 47 cents a mile and the 1,800, a quarter of it's right there. More
Yeah,
than
and that's not including, right? So, and I don't know what the current rates are, but back when I had employees, right, for truck drivers. It's different for every type of employee, right? Your secretary in the office has a different rate on what your all-in payroll costs are going to be because your workman's comp insurance is going to be lower on people who don't get injured. We know it's higher for truck drivers because truck drivers get injured, one of the most dangerous jobs in the country, right? One of the
Yeah.
most likely to get injured. So there's a reason why the insurance rate's higher is because it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, for the work comp, you're absolutely right. I'm just talking about Social Security tax.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
was going
workers'
to go
comp is
like
on
add
top of
in.
that.
Right.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
you look
100.
all in on a driving
Yeah.
employee, depending on what state you're in, you're north of 20% that
Yes.
the employer is paying on top of every dollar that you see on the top line of your payroll stub,
If
right?
and if they're paying a fair part of your health insurance, it's probably upwards of 30%.
Yeah, that's how we calculate it around here on the
Yeah,
math, right? Just
the
when we're
burn
like,
rate
okay,
plus
what's this?
vacation days,
Yeah.
things like that too. If I know not every trucking company pays holidays, but some do.
But
Um,
even now, you look, a lot of states are requiring at least sick time be accrued, right? And mandatory. So, that's a part of the cost of being a business owner now that's unavoidable.
right here in Michigan, we just started that in February.
Yep.
Um, Basically get 2 weeks a year.
Yeah, so
So
that 20-30% is what the employer who's paying you a 1099 is saving. Now, let's just call it 30%.
mhm,
30% of 1800 is 540 bucks.
exactly.
Right there's the difference of why that company wants to pay you 1099 and all of the list of benefits that you do not get. I mean, that's part of what you bear when you become an owner operator, right? An owner operator is on the 1099 side of the equation, right?
Yes.
And that's the understanding that you take. It's part of the reason why it's a little more profitable because let's face it, and I was this guy as a young man when I became an owner operator. I wasn't going to pay all those things on my own salary, and plus my net salary was going to be lower because I have deductions, depreciation, things I get to take to off lower my, let's say, my taxable
Yes.
wage that lowers that overall cost. So I'm bearing some of the risk, I'm bearing some of the cost myself in exchange for money as an owner operator. Um, as an employee, you're basically absorbing a bunch of risk and your employer's not contributing to your social security. So when you look at that annual statement social security sends out to you, or now you just go online to check it, your benefits are going to be lower for that payout when they tell you here's what you would get at 65 or 68 or 70. That number is going to be lower because you're the only one who's been contributing to it. Your employer has not. So, I mean, this is the hidden cost of going 1099 that you're going to find out the first time you do taxes after being a 1099 and not a W-2 employee.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's so much, you're in business for yourself at that point. You're running your own business, whether you're an owner operator or you're really a company driver who's choosing or whatever doing 1099 things. And I know they exist. I'm not naive. A lot of people do it, but it's not ever legal. But yeah, you're in business for yourself. So you've got to make those decisions. Like you got to know your retirement isn't going to be there if you spend your whole goal to make yourself not show income on your taxes, then you're not putting anything into your social security. So when you're 67 or whatever, ready to hang it up, usually for truck drivers is when their body fails them.
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing there for you, or
Yeah.
just that McDonald's job you have in high school before you got your CDL.
Yeah.
That's not really going to pay it. So you got to be aware of that. And I mean, that's a whole, probably we could spend a whole time talking about making sure that you're prepared for retirement as an owner operator. And I'm sure there's other people that could speak to that as well. But it's a big deal. You've got to, this isn't your kid's lemonade stand. You got to run this thing like a business if you're going to be a 1099. And
Yeah.
you got to because you're taking on risk. So you want to see that there's reward there. And as you demonstrated with the 30%, what accountants would call burn rate on the wage, there's no reward for your $1,800 guy versus 47 cents a mile. I mean,
Yeah.
that he's neutral already.
Yeah,
So
then we haven't even
where's the
gotten into
reward?
health benefits or, some of the other
Yeah.
ancillary benefits that come with. I'm sure Warner offers a whole sheet of benefits, or Schneider or CR England, whoever the
And
employer is.
age discrimination protection, things like that too.
Yeah.
Um, that's all part of being an employee, but as a vendor, you got none of that. They can cut you for any reason, anytime.
Yeah, the other thing person has to think about, right? When you're an owner operator and you go that route, you understand that there's risks and there's also requirements that they put on you as far as carrying your own insurance. And, you may get an umbrella policy that covers any gaps in coverage that you may have. But if you're essentially a company driver, but you're going down the 1099 route, you're not thinking of yourself as a business. And so you likely don't go out and do any of those things that would protect you in a relationship now it's a company to company relationship essentially, right? Um,
100%.
and so, they have protection. They know what they're doing. They know why they asked you to do it. They're taking the risk. Um, and so, but you're kind of playing a game at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and as well, many of, not all these drivers, but many of these drivers could be younger drivers. They could be drivers in their 20s. And I can't speak for them, but I can speak for me in my 20s. I wasn't great with money.
Mm.
So if you look at it again at your example of the social media post, the $1,800 a week, well, those first 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be fat and happy because I got $1,800 coming in. I'm not paying any tax. I'm not doing any estimated payments or any tax planning or anything.
Right.
I get this big old bank account. I'm going to buy a Harley. And then now I got bills coming in, and all of a sudden I do my taxes the first year, and I owe 20,000 because self-employment tax is in there and it's so big.
Yep.
Well, shoot, now I got to sell that Harley at a loss. Or just be behind on taxes my whole life and chase that down, which is just a hard way to live.
Yep.
And so yeah, you've really got to be aware of it. And the money's only part of it. It's the rest of it is the protections and the rights that you get as an employee that are law. So why would you give those away? There's plenty of trucking companies to go work for. And like this guy talked about, he's got a company that'll pay him 47 cents. You can go do that. They're out there. You might have to look at 3 or 4 Craigslist ads instead of one.
Yeah.
But you'll find them.
Yeah, and I'd like you to jump into around the topic of, while there are people out there right now who are going to be listening to this and they're in a 1099 situation,
Mhm.
you still have rights.
Yeah, you kind of.
Well, I mean,
Which you have rights, vendors. I mean, you have whatever's in your contract. If you're going to maintain that the vendor relationship is the relationship, is that it is 1099. If that's not what then you have whatever's in your contract.
but I
The
mean
only
from a
benefit,
misclassified, like if you've been
right? That's the other side
misclassified,
of it. Is
yeah, I
your
should have
other
stated
option
that
is to
better.
pursue that. You can say, look, I was supposed to be 1099. And it's really just, by the way, it's a reason why trucking companies shouldn't pay 1099 for their own benefit, because they can get beat up on this. There's a lot of ways this goes wrong. You do your taxes at the end of the year and you owe 20 grand, and your spouse just isn't having that you owe 20 grand. They're just like,
Right.
no, you need to go back. Or you fire the driver for being just a crummy driver. And they're like, no, I need unemployment. I'm going to say I'm an employee. Or any other situation like that. The employee, even if the employee came to the trucking company and said, I want to be 1099, they can still change their mind and say, I didn't know what I was saying. They get the
Yeah.
benefit of all that stuff. You're the company. You're supposed to know better. And so what a driver can do. So let's go back to that. A driver has been getting 1099, has had the epiphany, this might not be a great idea. What do I do about it? The first thing you do, talk to your trucking company, say, look, 1099 is not cool. I should be an employee. I'm driving a company truck. I'm not paying for the diesel. I'm not the one responsible if the truck drops the transmission. I'm just stuck in the middle of nowhere, but you're paying for the new transmission, all that kind of stuff. I don't get the benefit of that. I drove really speed consciously and got a lot better fuel mileage. I'm not getting the extra money for that. I don't have any of the risk. So if the trucking company says to them, yeah, go pound sand. That we agreed to a 1099. That's what you have to do. The driver can go out to IRS. Just Google IRS form SS8. You'll see it. It's going to ask. It's about 3 pages. It's going to ask you questions like, whose equipment did you use? Who set your hours? Who controls this and that and the other thing? There's a number of questions, and it's not an all or nothing thing where they have to be all on one side of it to be one way or the other, but they'll look at kind of the majority of the day, not pure majority, but like what ones matter the most for what you do. They're
Right.
also going to send it then to your trucking company and say, look, Bill Smith, the driver, fill out an SS8. We need to know about what he does. So that takes time, but you can do that. You can also go right to your state. The states have very similar things, and states will act more quickly as a rule. But if the driver wants to assert they're an employee, they're probably going to get there.
Yeah, and
So
even in situations
yes,
like retroactively, like you're in an
yes,
accident or something, you back into somebody and your employer wants to say you owe us for the money for that, and
hmm
it's not an agreement like what you talked about, or you get injured and you find out they're going to claim, yeah, we don't have work comp around here because you're a 1099. All those various scenarios, if you find yourself in those scenarios, you need to talk to the state. You need to potentially talk to an labor attorney, right, to
yes.
get this down the right track. Like because you don't forfeit your rights because of a misclassification.
You cannot waive those rights. So even if you sign a document waiving those rights, even if your contract with the trucking company says very specifically, I acknowledge I am getting 1099 and I'm a vendor and I waive all rights I would get as an employee, it doesn't matter. You can't give those away.
Yeah.
And so that's not valid. So it's more of a scare thing by the company to try and get you to not sue them. But you're gonna win. And then they're going to be in all kinds of hot water with the trucking company that you work for or worked for. You probably quit by then, but because it doesn't
Or
happen
they
that
got
night
rid
and
of you.
day. Yeah, right. One or the other. And then, then if they get rid of you, then you've got action for that too, just by the way.
Right.
Whistleblower kind of stuff. It's not called exactly whistleblower, but there's
Yeah, like
terminology.
retaliatory firing
Yeah,
or
yeah,
things like
retaliatory
that.
terminations and things like that. Again,
Yep.
the labor attorney will take care of all that for you.
Right.
They're
Yeah, it's a big mess from an employer side. And we see big companies lose big time and big amounts of money because, they owe back taxes. They owe all the fund that the IRS tax on to the what you weren't, because all that money should have been going into the Social Security fund all along. The workman's
state
comp,
unemployment.
unemployment, all those
Yep.
funds are going to go clawing back their money plus interest plus penalties. Like the fun is just beginning
And
for.
you might even be able to assert that they were obligated to withhold money from my check and they didn't do it.
Yeah, and
And
they may owe
they
part
may
of the
be liable
taxes
for
that
that
you
as
owe.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why I always advise companies if they're company drivers, pay them W-2 because you could have a driver with bad intentions saying, I want to be 1099, get paid the 1,500, 1,600 bucks a week you were talking about, 80 grand in the year. And then they'd owe a lot of money and then go back to the employer, go back to the trucking company and say, yeah, I changed my mind. You're going to have to fix this. And
Well,
that
especially,
they're
go ahead.
screwed.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, especially in an industry like you could maybe see this in some other industry, but look, we have incredibly high turnover in this industry, right?
hmm
Somewhere between most companies are somewhere, the best ones are around maybe 50, 60%. The worst ones are north of 100% turnover. But we have somewhere between 50 and 100% turnover easily on average, probably around 60 to
Yes.
70% overall. Now we have a job that is highly dangerous. We
hmm
also have a job that is that accidents happen. So like all the bad things that could happen for both sides to find out you're not in the right classification as a worker or a contractor. All those things are more likely to happen in our industry than basically any other industry in the country. And so everybody's on a path towards this doesn't end well, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of a lot of the mentality of a lot of trucking company owners anyway, is deal with the fire today and not
Hmm.
worry about tomorrow. And so we'll pay them 1099 today and save the money today and we'll deal with tomorrow when it comes, which is unfortunate because a little strategic thinking would really help them through this. It's short-term pain for long-term gain in that situation. Like you just got to be smarter than that. And on the other side too is if I'm a trucking company owner, the drivers that are coming to me saying I want to be 1099, they also have an agenda.
Yeah.
There might be a garnishment or child support or something that they don't want to pay or back taxes that they don't want to pay. Well, as soon as the other party gets wind of that, they're the ones who could force it as an employee issue. You don't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now you've gone sideways with the law. I don't know, it's not criminal, but it's gonna get you might end up eating that garnishment that they owed or that back child support because you were supposed to withhold it and you didn't. Or you were supposed to pay
Yeah.
that tax bill. They had a tax levy and you didn't honor it. So, there's no winning in it really. Like I mean, I
No.
understand why they do it in the sense of the problem today, but yeah, it's really not a winner. And so, yeah, to your guy with the social media thing, I would do the 47 cents a mile, and I'd sleep better at night knowing if I got in an accident that my family's gonna not lose my wages.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think that's a
That
huge
that's
thing because yeah, those injuries are 6 to 8 months, years long,
yeah.
right? So that for sure I would do that. But I love that they ask the questions of you. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, really great post. And I mean, you just see a lot of questions around that and around kind of when it goes sideways, like, hey, I got in an accident, but I'm a 1099, and the guy says he's just going to take the money out of my check until I pay back either the deductible or a lot of times today with the challenges that insurance is so expensive that carriers are reluctant to submit claims, and
Hmm.
so they want you to eat the whole out of pocket cost, right? Either for the damage that you caused or the damage to the truck, the company's truck that you were driving. And
Yeah.
people don't know how to what to do. And I think overall we just have there's a lot of misunderstanding about the rules and regulations around the workplace and
Mhm.
what's okay for employers, what's okay for employees. How do these relationships really work? No thanks to our government that has thousands of lines of legalese defining all this stuff that's nearly impossible to understand for a common person. But
Hmm.
there's just a lot of misunderstanding, and that creates opportunities for people to take advantage of one another.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that I mean, that's the world we live in. So, it's kind of was it caveat emptor, but let the buyer beware. Like if you're the employee, you're the buyer in that situation. Just know what you're getting into,
Yeah.
and do the work on it. And people will tell, of course, it's trucking, so there's a million stories on every direction about it. But you got to seek out the truth and what makes sense and what doesn't. Some things just aren't going to make sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the owner operator who hears, oh, so and so at this other company is getting $5 a mile to go 2,500 miles a week, and it's all,
Yeah.
one.
Downhill both directions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's all drop trailers, and I don't have to do anything. Well, is he really? He got a $5 load going 20 miles once, and it
Yeah.
was it was live load, live unload. So come on, let's just all take a deep breath there. So just being able to find the truth out of it. Yeah, I think that you want to ask yourself, yeah, what if this if I'm a driver for a company that requires me to be 1099, I would ask myself, do I really how much do I trust this guy? Because he's gonna have to stand up. What are we gonna do if there's an accident? What guarantees do I have? What are you gonna do about all these other things? Because there's so much out there, and yeah, it's not it's just it almost never ends well. And so you either have a big tax bill or you have no social security when you go to retire.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a calculator up on the website, or even just like a breakdown side by side of some of the costs that people, I mean, I grew up the same way, right? Started, working farm jobs, cash, right? And then worked into some, working for an actual employer like a Dairy Queen or whatever, a McDonald's
Hmm.
as a teenager. But then, you know, let's face it. I mean, now you were back then you were paid with a paper check, and it had a stub on it and it had a bunch of lines with a bunch of acronyms that you didn't know what the heck that meant, other than like the first time you got one and you go, wait a minute, they told me the job paid $6 an hour and I worked 10 hours. Why is the check not for $60? And then you go show it to your parents and they go, yeah, that's not how it works, son.
Yep.
Welcome to the
Who's that
real
FICA
world.
guy, and why do you take all my money?
Yeah, why'd that guy get $4 this week? What
Hmm.
did he do?
Exactly. I don't remember him working. I don't remember him scooping those Dairy Queen shakes.
Yeah.
So,
So, but I mean, even today, I mean, now a lot of employees, they never even see a physical check stub. They never see it, right? It gets direct deposited. Nobody sees all the rows and line items that go into it, which is, it looks a lot like your power bill with all the random things that get taken out of there. We kind of, as Americans, we probably need to pay closer attention and make sure that we understand what's really going on here, because we can get into a situation that is not what we intended. And this stuff matters, right? Your family's ability to still get a paycheck even if you get injured is a
mhm.
big deal. Like when you look at any of the statistics and the polls that come out that say like how big of an expense could you absorb if you let's say your transmission fell out of your car or you got injured at work, like how many months worth of your wages do you have saved up? And the answers are not very good. And so being in a situation where you have no protection, or even if we talked about it, if you're misclassified, you still have rights, but your payday for those rights could be long after your bankruptcy took place,
They probably have deeper pockets than you do and can outlast you.
Yep.
Two quick things I want to circle back to. One of them is on our website at truckingpayroll.com. We have a resources tab, and right in there, there's a trucking success tools thing. There's a bunch of different tests and tools and assessments you can take. One of them is, should my drivers be 1099 or W-2? It's going to ask you about
Awesome.
7 questions. It acts as if you're talking like I'm talking to the trucking company, but a driver could answer the questions too and see if the company's treating them properly. There's a disclaimer, we're not attorneys. But yeah, like it's at least going to give you an idea. It's going to ask you 7 questions or so that you'll know the answers to. The other thing is on the check stub. Yeah, even though they're not handed out to people anymore, we still email them to everybody every week. And I think most places have it available, but a lot of people don't go look at them.
Yep.
So I think they're just not, it's not in their physical hands. But
Yeah.
even whether it's us or somebody else, I don't want to imply that we're the only ones that give out pay stubs, because I think you have to. I think it's law.
Yeah,
in a
you
lot of
have to
places.
allow.
But
There has
I
to be
can't.
access.
Yeah, but I don't have to. But I can't make you look at it
Yep.
and understand it. And we always want to make paychecks easy to understand, because that's important, that the transparency between the company and the driver. But yeah, and your other thing too, you talked about how much you have saved up. 77% of people in the country live paycheck to paycheck, meaning you miss one paycheck and the whole system breaks down.
Yep.
And if you're in a driver and you get hurt and you don't have that coverage, even forgetting about the medical bill that's going to bankrupt you anyway, yeah, you're going to lose your house too. I remember me talking to an owner operator years ago who didn't get occupational accident insurance, which is like owner operator work comp, and for the self-employed, and he didn't get it, and he slipped getting out of his truck. I lost his truck because he like tore his Achilles or something like that, where he couldn't drive for 6 or 8 months, but he still had truck payments. He was a legit owner operator, but he couldn't do it. He had to sell his truck just to try and get out of it. So yeah, you're running a business now. You're playing with the adult table.
Yep, for sure. Well, I think the other thing too you made me think of there was the other kind of common post you see in social media is, hey, I'm going to quit this job and I'm a 1099, but they
Mhm.
basically threaten me that they're going to withhold, or I'm worried they're going to withhold that last paycheck over some reason, almost like when you're, at the end of your lease for an apartment, right? But once
Yes.
again, you're not an employee. Well, I mean, you're misclassified, but they're treating you as if you're a contractor, and you're not really. But
Yeah,
there's just a lot of situations.
and you could sue them as a vendor because you perform the work and try and get them that way, and they would know that it could go into this other thing. But to those people, first of all, those people who have to write those posts, that sucks. Like, that's just a bad day. But you're working for a company you don't trust, and you shouldn't have to do that. There are plenty of other trucking companies. You should not have to work for a company you don't trust. That is the gap that is always going to be there for you, even if you're choosing to still reward this guy who you don't trust by continuing to work there. Man, yeah, you got to get out of there. The $800 you're going to miss out on because he does you dirty. Worst case, you don't ever get it back, right? But that's a small price to pay. I know it's a lot. $800 is a lot of money, but you got to get away from that guy today. That's a bad relationship, and you don't trust him. Like, I don't trust he's going to pay me. They almost explicitly say it.
Yep.
You run away. Don't walk away from those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mike, awesome conversation, a wealth of information. So glad to meet you and bring your knowledge to the audience, and more so in the future. So really appreciate your time today, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds great. Awesome. Anytime I can be helped, please reach out.
Great.